Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey and this is Floral Art Online, the Designs Dissected series, where we have our AI DesignEye look at an old competition design of mine and analyse it in terms of the principles and elements of design, which is the same way we are judged in competition, and give us some ideas of how it meets that criteria, as well as what might be some suggestions for improvement for the design. This week's design was titled At the Beach, and it was a bench design, as you can see, 60 centimetres of space allowed. My thinking for this was that I wanted it to be just the colours that are dominant at the beach. So the yellow of the sunshine, the green of a little bit of greenery around the beach itself, and then just the sandy colours. So what I've used as the structure is a shell upturned with some floral foam in it. This design, I will say, is from about 10 years ago. So it was when we were comfortable using floral foam, which we're probably not as comfortable doing these days. So it's got the upturned shell with the foam in it. Around that I have got some little bit of fern that you might find, that style of fern you might find around the beaches here in Australia, not necessarily across the world. Some sponges, some sea sponges, and some rope that is made out of agapanthus leaves. Now, if you're interested in that technique, you'll find that on the website. It's just called Making Foliage Ropes, and you can make it from pretty well any straight, flat foliage. I've also plaited a palm leaf into a nautilus shell shape, just to repeat that shell idea and the curves of the design. I've got some roses in a line, some crospedia billy buttons in the line as well, and that was more to bring your eye up to the single placement of the fern, the umbrella fern, because I wanted it to look sort of beachy, and so the umbrella was part of the beach idea. The design placed third in the competition, and I was probably not as happy as I could have been with it, because I thought that I had incorporated lots of things that made it feel at the beach, that the judge would feel that they were at the beach when they looked at it. Now that I look at it 10 years later, and a lot of experience later, I can see that there are some issues with the design. But let's now see what AI, our DesignEye, has got to say, and what improvements we could make to bring it more into line with the theme that was stated. So looking at form and structure first of all, and just a bit of an explanation, because I know with my local workshops that sometimes they get confused about these ideas. So form generally means the shape of the components in your design, and structure is often referred to as the line of the design. So what is the dominant line in the design, and what is the dominant form? So what is the dominant shape in the design? So what we've got from DesignEye is that the strong vertical line created by the stacked yellow roses and billy buttons leads the eye upward, and that takes you up to the umbrella fern, which I hoped would happen. I hoped you would go up to the umbrella and then come back down into the design. That's where your eye is supposed to travel. The asymmetrical structure creates interest with a sense of organic movement. I wasn't really going for an asymmetrical structure, but obviously that's what has occurred in this instance. I'm much more adept now at looking at the symmetry and asymmetry of designs, but bear in mind this was 10 years ago, and it's good for me to look back because I can see the improvement, and it should be good for you guys to look back on your designs as well and see how far you have actually come. The horizontal base components provide stability, resembling driftwood and sea life. So exactly what I wanted in the base. My feeling on first glance at it now is that it's probably a little bit too heavy in the base, but we'll move on and see what else we've got as our analysis from DesignEye. Balance. The combination of tall, airy foliage and low, dense elements creates good visual balance. So much for my view of it being a little bit visually out of balance, a little bit bottom heavy. The placement of the large shell is effective in anchoring the design. So I wanted something that kept the design in that space. The curved palm leaf on the right adds flow, but might feel slightly disconnected. Integrating similar greenery on the left would create better harmony. And I think that's exactly right. I think the poor old nautilus woven palm leaf is just out there on its own. There's no repetition of that form and that shape. I had hoped that it would be similar to the shell itself, but it needs something that repeats it more often so that your eye makes the connection between the shell and the palm leaf. At the moment it's facing the wrong way to start with, so you can't really see the shape as well as you should be able to, but it is a similar shape to the shell itself. Texture and materials. The rough driftwood, soft moss, structured foliage and smooth shell create an engaging tactile experience. So that's talking about the base of the design, where we've got the driftwood obviously at the back. We've got the what it's calling the soft moss. I think it's probably referring to the sponges, the sea sponges. So we'll take it at face value. The structured foliage, which is the umbrella fern and the leaf that we've plaited into a nautilus shell shape, and the smooth shell create an engaging tactile experience. Now the shell itself is not particularly smooth. It's not shiny smooth. It's got a little bit of roughness on it, but obviously can't be seen as well through the image that I've got here on the screen. The use of fibrous plant material mimics the look of dried seaweed, enhancing the beach theme. So, and that introduces something that I have learned since the time that I did this, is that I started to use seaweed, and I've used bleached seaweed, and some of you will have seen some of the designs where I've used the bleached seaweed to very great effect. And the difference, if you're looking at competition, the difference between using sea sponges and seaweed is that the sponges are considered an animal, and the seaweed obviously is plant material. So just bear that in mind, that most judging criteria and most judging formats will consider the sponge is not plant material, and so you have to minimize the amount of that you've got in your design. So probably in that sense, for judging, I have too much sponge in this design, although it is fibrous. I could have used coconut fibre for the similar sort of effect, and that would have enhanced the amount of plant material that is in the design. Colour and contrast. The yellow blooms contrast well with the earthy browns and greens, creating vibrancy, which is exactly what I wanted. The warm tones of the shell and wood enhance the natural sunlit beach aesthetic. All of that's very good. I think what it's lacking, as you will have heard me say in previous videos, is a base, is something that separates it from the bench itself. So there's this transition, and it's a very stark transition between the bottom of the design and the white of the covering for the bench. If I had it on a board, and had I covered that board with sand, it would have enhanced the design tenfold, I would think. Rhythm and movement. The placement of roses in a vertical line draws the eye upward in a natural flow. The diagonal angles of wood and greenery create movement reminiscent of sea currents. Well, that's good, because I definitely didn't have that in mind when I was thinking about it. And the curved fern at the top adds a soft windswept effect. And it's not that's great, but it's not the effect I was hoping for. I was hoping that it would look like a beach umbrella, and that here was the eye going up to this beach umbrella, as I said at the beginning, and then dropping back down into the design. So I can see, the more I look at it, I can see how disjointed that section is, and I know what I need to do in my head. I know what I need to do to bring the design back into a little bit more rhythm and appropriate movement, shall we say. Proportion and scale. The scale of the elements is well balanced, with the larger base supporting the lighter top. And that's something that I probably have a bit of an issue with. I just don't think it's quite the right scale of materials. And I do think that the base is out of proportion to the top, but that's my view. The upper section is slightly sparse. Perhaps a bit more greenery at the mid-level would enhance fullness, and I think that's very true. I think that, as I said just a minute ago, it is not quite unified in its design, and so I would like to see something that brought it together a bit more than is appearing in the image that we're looking at today. The emphasis or focal point. The yellow roses obviously act as the primary focal point, drawing attention, so that's where your eye goes first, and it does travel up to the umbrella fern, and hopefully it comes back down into the design. But if it doesn't, well, that's another thing that I'd need to look at The shell, sponge and driftwood serve as secondary focal areas, reinforcing the beach theme. So we've got the beach theme at the bottom, and that tells you that it's beach, and then we've got the yellow, hopefully, for the sunlight going up to what should have been a more luscious umbrella, obviously, and that would have enhanced the design. So let us now see what DesignEye suggests in terms of improvements for us to really have a design that shouts at the beach. Enhance the midsection. There is a slight gap between the bold lower section and the delicate top. Adding a transition element such as another small floral cluster or lighter greenery would create better flow. And that's very true, as I've said all along, and I think the lighter greenery would be the way to go. I don't want to add, I wouldn't be comfortable adding any more flowers or clusters of flowers into the design. I just think that a little bit more greenery, so perhaps another umbrella fern just resting on the top of the top yellow rose would give me repetition of that form and that element, but also bring the two sections, as it would appear now, of the design together. Unify the right side greenery. The palm leaf on the right feels a little isolated. A subtle repetition of its shape on the left could improve cohesion, and we've talked about that, and yes, that's very true, and I probably would have it facing the other way, in fact not facing out, because at the moment the curve of that leaf takes you out of the design. A little bit confusing because there's the green tape at the back of it in the image. There is the corner of the bench itself, but it does have a tendency to take you out of the design, and there's nothing there to bring you back into the design. Introduce slight colour variation. While the yellow is vibrant, adding a soft blue or white floral accent could enhance the oceanic theme without overpowering the warmth. And I would go for the white, because that would then be a little bit more like the edge of the waves that you might see at the beach. So I'd probably go for white, so some little whites, so Easter daisies, or probably not gypsophila, probably not baby's breath, maybe some status, something that had a bit more solid form to it, but is small in terms of the whiteness and gives you a nice line of flowers rather than just another rounded shape. So that's the suggestions for our design this week. The final thoughts on our analysis was that this is a beautifully conceptualized design that successfully conveys a natural coastal environment. The use of texture, organic materials and colour contrast is well executed. I would like to see a bit more colour contrast, but anyway, with small adjustments to mid-level balance and unity of greenery, the design could achieve even greater visual impact. So it's very much about that midsection, about repeating that palm leaf, and about bringing the two halves of the design, the bottom half and the top half, together to creating it a bit more unified in terms of the greenery rather than anything else, and maybe a few tiny little white flowers down in the bottom. I would like to see it on a base as well, and I think a base that is covered with sand or with sandpaper, because you could get sandpaper that looks like sand, but it's much easier to attach to a board than try and put the sand on, and it would be the same sort of colours as is in the sponge and the shell. So that's our design for this week at the beach. If you've got a design that you would like analysed free of charge, all you need to do is go to the website, upload your image. Within about 24 hours, you'll have your analysis back, and each of these analyses is looked at by a human judge so that we make sure that the information that is being presented to you is useful in terms of your floral art journey. So with that, I will leave you to continue on your floral art journey. I'm Kim Bailey. This is Floral Art Online, the Designs Dissected series.